shouldn't have listened.
The chart drum was unplugged, but it still spelled my name. 3 taps on the railing answered every time the pen moved. I think it was learning how to write me back. I'm Adam Pierce, night operator at North Ridge Water Treatment. After midnight, the plant breathes on autopilot, clarifiers turning, chlorine sting in the nose, coffee burnt to tar. The analog recorder sits by my elbow. When the digital system freezes, that pen line is gospel. Tyler was in the lab pulling samples. I logged 1:54 a.m., flow steady, chlorine nominal, and watched the pen hold level. Then it climbed. 2 millimeters. Then again. No valves opened. I tapped the housing. The pen twitched like it had been waiting. I wrote, "Pen sticky," in the margin. The pen copied the word sticky in the same crooked K I always make. I told myself Tyler had magnets under the deck. I called him. He yelled over the hood fan, "I'm busy!" His voice was fine. The laugh that followed mine wasn't his. 3 metallic knocks rolled up from the clarifier deck. Same rhythm as my heartbeat. I stepped out, flashlight cutting halos in the mist. The rail was wet, but still. "Pipe cooling," I said, to the air to steady myself. Back inside, the recorder paper had advanced inches forward. On the news sheet, my handwriting appeared again, neater than mine, reading, "Adjust feed." I lifted the pen arm. It kept drawing, ink on air. The line curved into a crude arrow pointing toward the sample binder. I opened it before I could decide not to. Inside, a fresh line in block print. "Did you see me?" Tyler came in with bottles, the nearest fogged like someone breathed on it. 4 pale ovals bloomed on his wrist where he'd held the glass. He joked, it died in the air. The taps echoed again, now from above the lights. We looked up, empty catwalk, but the metal sang like footsteps learned the ceiling. We killed power at the strip. The motor whined down. The paper kept feeding. The pen traced 3 repeating V-shapes. Sound turned into writing. Then it began new letters, patient strokes. "Don't adjust." Tyler whispered, "That's not funny, man." I said, "I know." The taps answered from the mezzanine, slow, polite. We hid in the break room with the vending machine hum. The unplugged recorder still whispered through the doorway, paperless, etching into its own shell. Morning crew found it dry, grooves carved deep through the paint. They said it looked like someone had traced words with a nail. I saw you first. January 18th, 2025, 12:41 a.m. Granite Rink, North Service Bay. Ice temperature dial. Plus, blade hone counter. I'm Sean Mac McAllister, Rink Tech. The public thinks the Zamboni does everything. We're the ones keeping the ice at a hair under 22, so it sings. That night, the dehumidifier spat out air like a wet dog. The youth league had just cleared, and Jenna was finishing the blade hone on the side unit. The bay smells like hot metal and cold breath. The ice dial on the wall is analog, needle and face, because the digital readout lies when the compressor short cycles. I tapped it like a gambler. The needle held steady. Jenna said, "You want first cuts?" We do 2 passes, circle and ladder. I told her to go. I'd squeegee the bay. Easy work, warm hands. Skate scratch sang from the rink when no one was on it. One long, too short. It's a song I could play on a steering wheel. Jenna popped her head out and said, "You hear that?" I said, "Metal contracting." She said, "At perfect temp?" and rolled her eyes. We argue like people who like each other. A minute later, the dial nosed down a degree without the compressor kicking on. The blade hone counter clicked up a skate pair as if someone fed it a ticket. Jenna was right there. Nobody had come through. I said the counter sticks sometimes from dust. I said the dial needle drifts from bay vibration. The scrape sang again, same rhythm, closer, like the sound folded around a corner. We walked out together. The rink was a mirror under lights, uncut since the mites. No tracks, no snow. At center ice, a single coin lay under the surface like it had fallen before freeze. I've never seen a coin inside the sheet. Jenna said, "We rich?" The scrape answered from under our boots, not above. The sound came up through the concrete like a blade dragged under the floor. We looked down through perfect ice and saw a dark line forming under the surface, a long curving stroke like a skate mark in the wrong layer. I said, "Old paint line bleeding through." Jenna said, "Paint is deeper," then crouched and squinted. The line kept curving, and when it ended, a matching parallel line began like a second edge set down carefully beside the first. Two skates, moving together, under the ice. I tried to be funny because fear hates jokes. "They're just fast, they're already underneath." Jenna punched my arm. The dial in the bay ticked down another degree. The hone counter clicked again. I told myself the compressor was cycling slow and the counter's reed switch was bouncing. I told myself air pockets do weird things to sound. I held on to those sentences like railings. We were still at the boards when the ladder cut pattern, what you'd see after a Zamboni pass, ghosted into visibility across the sheet from numbered equipment at all. Faint, pale rectangles like light rake lines, turning at the ends in clean 90-degree moves. Jenna said, very calmly, "That is not us." We watched the invisible machine complete a lane and back down the next. It was still going when the scrape sang again under the ice, now at the north end crease. Two lines etched there, parallel, stopping right at the face-off dot and pivoting like a player bracing. It left no snow. It left thought. The locker hallway camera is junk, but it spits stills when it sees motion. Both our phones buzzed. The thumbnails were the empty rink, no people, stamped 1241, and an extra frame of the bench glass reflecting the sheet. In the reflection, two skaters rested against the boards, shoulders steaming, heads down, blades tucked. Their jerseys were blank white. Their breath fogged only the glass. You could count fog prints at mouth height. Jenna texted our manager in all caps. The text returned unsent. The bay door swung inward on its own and the hone motor whined alive. The counter ticked up like someone laced a boot into it. I grabbed the kill switch. My hand closed on air because the switch felt an inch to the left of where it actually was, like the room had been copied slightly wrong. When I found it, the motor kept turning anyway for one more second, obedient to someone else's hand. The blade holder came up clean and wet, as if it had cut ice I couldn't see. Droplets smoked in the cold. We went safe in the office. Tinny radio, burnt coffee. I stared at the dial through the interior window. It had settled precisely at 22 again. The hone counter read 2 pairs processed since we shut down. The rink lights dimmed to night mode and we watched the sheet go from mirror to slight frost. On the far side at the crease, 2 pale ovals formed at knee height on the glass and slid down together like hands leaving. I found the coin after our morning cut, surface level, not embedded. It was warm in my palm and smelled like a pocket that doesn't belong to anyone we know. This doesn't end here. Something else was happening somewhere else.
April 22nd, 2025, 4:06 a.m. Gate C17, Port Aransas Regional. Galley oven temp printout plus interphone playback. I'm Dylan Rhodes, flight attendant. Pre-dawn turns are quiet. No one wants to exist at 4 a.m. The jet sat cold at the gate, nose toward the glass. Maria, our lead,
did paperwork. I did the galley ovens. We don't turn them on at the gate. Company policy. Ground power only feeds the lights and minimal systems. The oven's dot matrix printer spat a half-inch test strip when I loaded paper. It shouldn't print anything else. I love rules like that because they make the world solid. I tore it clean, wrote the flight number and the time in the log. The interphone crackled in the aft galley like a throat clearing. I lifted the handset and got dead air. Maria called from the front. "You rang?" I hadn't. The oven printer chattered again and fed a full log like we'd completed a cycle. It scrolled times and temps in neat columns, as if it had been running all night. Preheat 325 degrees C. Hold 180. Door open 0013. Cycle end 0406. I touched the oven door. Cold enough to burn skin. The strip was warm in my hand like a heartbeat. Maria said ground crew probably used the oven for their breakfast. I wanted that to be true so badly I almost believed it. The interphone clicked and my own voice, flat, half asleep, said in my ear, "Good morning, folks. Welcome aboard." I hadn't done the PA yet. She heard it too, her head turned toward the front speaker like a cat. We looked at each other over 60 feet of empty cabin. We did the rational dance. I checked the breakers, ovens off both sides. She called the agent. The agent shrugged in that airline way. I opened the forward closet to check the spare printer rolls, and the closet smelled like something that once had heat and then remembered it. The plastic on the coat hook was pliant. The jet bridge door gave a polite vibration against the frame like someone tried the handle without committing. The interphone rang again, 2 short pulses. I answered. Nobody. I hung up and the cabin speakers carried a brief breath, not mine. The inhale before you introduce yourself. And then silence. Maria said, "We're not doing a haunted flight." We laughed because if you don't, you'll walk out. When the agent finally stepped aboard, she brought coffee and a paper for Maria. The agent's handheld printer beeped and spat a bag tag with our flight number and a timestamp that read 0406 beside the words, "Arrived." Arrived. We hadn't left. I pulled the waste cart from the forward galley because chores are armor, and found a napkin at the bottom with the airline logo, wrinkled like someone had gripped it tight. On it, in a ballpoint version of my handwriting with the same weird R I make, was written, "Water first." That's the note I leave my cell phone first. Legs, because I always forget water service. I hadn't written it yet. Maria said, soft, "Okay, let's just water first then." Passengers began to collect at the window. A kid pointed at the nose and waved. I followed his finger. The cockpit dome light was on. The captain hadn't arrived. The interphone crackled and played my full welcome announcement in one clean take, like a recording of a man who believes he's already done his day. Maria asked, "Did you pre-record that?" I shook my head. The printer fed a second strip. Door open 002, cycle end 0406, cool down. The safe spot was the jet bridge. We stood there with the agent listening to a plane behave like a memory of itself. The agent swore she saw shadows move against the cabin ceiling through the windows, like bags in bins settling. But there were no bags. When the captain finally came, he flicked the battery on and off, a hard reset. Everything went quiet the way a refrigerator stops and you learn how loud it was. We did our demo and pushed back late. In the air, the ovens heated and behaved. We fed 22 people breakfast sandwiches. At cruise, I checked the strip again. The paper had cooled and yellowed at the edge as if from older heat. The interphone is supposed to save the last message for replay if you fat finger the button. When I leaned into the galley to wipe up crumbs, the replay triggered. It wasn't my voice this time. "Good morning, folks. Welcome back." Back. Not aboard. Maria
Maria didn't look at me when she heard it because she already knew what I'd say. We've never flown this exact flight before in our lives, and the printer sitting cold will print our cycle end at 0406 again tomorrow anyway. This doesn't end here. The world is full of even worse horrors. November 9th, 2025, 11:23 p.m. Little ash fire lookout, High Ridge. Wind-up regulator clock plus visitor ledger. I'm Nate Bishop. I take off-season shifts at the lookout because the pay's steady and the quiet is good for my head. The tower is a square room on stilts with windows for walls and a wood stove that smells like pencil shavings. The regulator clock on the west wall is wound by key. It ticks like a metronome you forget you started. My brother Caleb hiked up to bring me stew. We ate from the pot and watched the valley blacken. The clock ticked steady, the pendulum swinging with a smug little smile. Tick, tick, tick. Wind gusts rattled the shutters in groups of 3. That's normal on this ridge. Everything here is 3s, trusses, nails, steps. The radio cracked and Caleb said, "You key that?" I hadn't. I logged our meal in the visitor ledger because I log everything. The pencil felt like writing on bone. The paper's old. I put the book back by the stove. The clock ticked an extra beat, a soft mistake that made my jaw clench. Clocks can't add beats. I told myself the pendulum caught a tiny draft from the stove, that wood stoves are sneaky like that. When I glanced at the ledger a minute later, there was a new line under my handwriting in a blockier hand. 11:24 p.m., Bishop N. Returned. We hadn't left. Caleb grinned and said I finally learned to time travel. The shutters rattled in a neat set. Clack, clack, clack. And then again, closer. The sound walking around the room clockwise like footsteps forced sideways. The clock ticked in 3s now. Tick, tick, pause. Tick, tick, pause. The pause was a breath you could hear. I told myself the regulator needed leveling. I folded a matchbook under the foot because that's what my grandfather did. The pendulum smiled its wooden smile and kept counting wrong. We stepped onto the wraparound to check the guy wires. The door slammed behind us even though the latch doesn't spring. We took one step toward the south corner and found our boots on the north stair landing instead, the space tipping us to where we hadn't aimed. We laughed too loud. The ledger inside the window sat open to a blank page. I could see our reflections superimposed on the paper. Caleb's head cocked, my shoulders too high. The pencil rolled by itself to the middle of the page and stopped. We rattled the door. It gave like a held breath and released. Inside, the stove had gone low. The clock hand ticked back 1 minute, then forward 2, then back 1, as if deciding. The visitor ledger now had 2 more entries. 11:23 p.m., Bishop C. arrived, and 11:23 p.m., N. Bishop arrived. Written with our names swapped like someone who knows us slightly, but not well. Caleb set his bowl down and rubbed his arm. 4 pale spots appeared like cold rain, but only on his skin. He said he'd warmed himself by the stove 5 seconds ago. The stove thermometer hadn't moved. The radio clicked alive and carried my voice in the tone I use when I'm trying to be steady. Wind backing north. I hadn't keyed anything. Caleb said without looking at me, "You sound older." We did the safe move, closed the ledger and placed it under the clock like that could anchor it. Tick, tick, tick. The clock's face reflected the room. For a second, the reflection had us in different places. Caleb by the west window, me at the door. Then it caught up, like a delay. The pendulum swung a hair wider and started hitting the case on the left. A gentle wood tap at the end of each swing. Tap, tick, tap, tick. I poured tea.
the cup steamed. The steam bent around a shape that wasn't there, curved as if to avoid someone's shoulder at my left. Caleb noticed and pretended he didn't. He told me about a dumb fight with his neighbor so we could both live in that story for a minute instead of this one. At midnight, the regulator chimed once, though it only chimes on the hour every hour, and then kept chiming softly like it was far away, the sound arriving late. I opened the ledger again. A last entry with my handwriting, but a colder hand said, 12 a.m., Bishop, staying till morning. I hadn't decided that yet. We slept in shifts. Every time I woke, the clock hands had moved and not moved. The last time, the pendulum had stopped and something else in the room kept time without it. Breaths, maybe, not hours. The ledger's pencil had rolled to the window and left a faint graphite line across the sill, like a horizon where somebody's been counting. Wind threads through shutters in threes. This doesn't end here. Something else was happening somewhere else.
August 7, 2025, 2:31 p.m. Westway Self-Storage, Row E, Unit Seal Photos plus Auction Inventory app. I'm Grant Walker, Assistant Manager. Storage auctions are not like TV, mostly paper, dust, and the smell of other people's old plastic. We photograph the tamper seals on each unit before cutting them. The app assigns a lot number and uploads to the cloud. Denise runs the floor. I do the row checks. Row E bakes in the afternoon. The asphalt gives back everything the sun gave it. I started at E11, snap, upload. E12, snap, upload. E13 had a fresh blue seal with our stamp. I took a photo. The thumbnail popped up on my screen immediately. Clean corrugations, my fingers in the corner, grease on the pull ring. The app chimed and asked if I wanted to replace existing photo. Existing? This was new. I hit view. A second photo sat there, same angle, but the grime pattern on the pull ring was smeared into 4 lighter ovals, like someone held it with cold hands. Timestamp, 2:31. I told myself Denise must have done a test pass I didn't see. I called her on speaker. She said she was with a buyer at the counter and hadn't been down row E. While we spoke, E13's entry updated with a third image. The door rolled up in the photo, though I was standing in front of it closed. Inside, a rectangle of light fell across boxes stacked like teeth. It looked warm in there. The app said, "Captured just now." I put my palm to the metal. Hot. I listened. A little sound came through the corrugations like paper moving against paper. I said to the air, "We cut at 3. You can talk to the office." Saying policies out loud is a life raft. The seal was intact. I took a 4th photo to prove it. The new thumbnail showed my shoulder, the same metal, and the cord frayed 1 thread further than in the picture I took a second before. I checked with my eyes. The cord was not frayed. In the picture it was. Denise came down with her clipboard because I must have sounded wrong. We stood together. She said, "Take a video." I did. In the live preview, the door slats reflected a person-shaped distortion at our height, like heat wavering, but in person the air was still. We played the clip in the shade by E10. The clip showed the door lifting half a foot, just enough to see a line of dust roll, and a box corner twitch as if settling from a long hold. In person, the door hadn't moved. We called the owner listed on the account. Disconnected. We called our district number. Voicemail. Denise decided to call it early and cut E13 to avoid a scene in front of buyers. She photographed the seal with her phone for redundancy. Her thumbnail showed the seal number ending in 58. Mine showed 53. We read them together.
The plastic in real life said 53. We are not blind. She snipped. The blue fell to asphalt and sat there like a shed skin. We rolled the door. The heat inside. Side out. The first thing was the smell. Not rot, not plastic, but the apple sweet of cardboard that's been closed a long time. The boxes were labeled in tidy black. Winter, books, S, kitchen. A Polaroid lay face down on a tote. I never touch items before auction, but Denise said, just flip it to see if it's a family photo we should hide. We flipped it with one finger. It was me and Denise at the doorway exactly as we stood, same angle, same sweat, dark on my shirt. In the photo, my left hand rested on the pole strap like I owned it. I looked at my left hand. It was on my hip. The photo had that Polaroid wetness still finishing itself, the image gaining contrast while we watched. Something inside shifted weight, not far back, just beyond the first row of boxes, the sound of a tote lid flexing and setting. We stepped onto the line of shade at the threshold like it was a boundary that mattered. The app chimed and attached a new image to the lot. A view from the unit floor looking out at us. The light behind us turned into a halo, both of us almost silhouettes. Captured just now. We went safe at the office counter. The buyers watched us through the glass, bored, fiddling with paddles someone had printed on cardstock. The printer on the back shelf spat an unsent contract with lot E13 filled out. Buyer name blank, sale price blank, signature line bearing my name in my hand. Denise didn't look at me when she slid it under the stapler. We closed the gate on row E and put up a sign. Mechanical issue. I locked the desk drawer where we keep spare seals and found one blue with 58 already scuffed, like it had been on a door. The photo roll on my phone keeps reordering itself when I scroll past E13. The last thumbnail, always, no matter how I sort, shows the unit from knee height with the light on the asphalt and 4 pale smudges on the pole strap where hands would have been. Colder than heat has any right to feel. Cicadas swell, then stop.